Sie hören Sport und Musik.
Das Spiel ist aus! Deutschland ist Weltmeister!
Mario Götze! Mario Götze!
Tonight, whether you call it football, or soccer, a German American and a German in America dare to call it Fußball. German foosball from an American point of view. Let's add some buns to that hamburger and join them for the Schnitzel Boys Deutschland Hour.
Yay! Yeah! Yes! Here we are. Monday night, Schnitzel night. The Deutschland Hour. Deutschland! Deutschland führt!
Deutschland über... Oh, I just did something.
Über who? Über alles or über allen? Right? Anyway, this is the Germany Hour. Bjorn, how you doing today?
I'm good. I'm sorry. I just did something here with my tech briefly. I did something terrible, but I fixed it. Hello. I'm doing great. Am I? Yeah, I'm doing great. Yeah, why not?
Excellent. Excellent. I'm trying to be loud.
How are you,
Good.
Stefan?
I'm okay. Been running around a lot. A lot of stuff is adding up. But I'm okay. Life is good. I can't complain. Here in Los Angeles,
you can always complain, Stefan. You can always complain. I'm sorry. What were you saying?
I complain all the time. Here in Los Angeles, the fall weather is finally starting. It's been overcast for the last few days. I love fall weather. It's my favorite season. I love the autumn.
It's been
nice
very
to get it
warm here in New York. It was like midsummer today. It was not fall like at all. It was very warm.
Well, it is LA. It was 81 degrees today. I mean, Los Angeles doesn't go south of 80. I mean, it does. It usually hangs out in the 70s. But it's a dry heat. It's not as overbearing. But the thing with LA, it's hot and sunny with no clouds every day, all day. And through the summer, especially with the heat wave we had a month ago, it goes up to 100. It's really hot. So it's been nice to have clouds over the last week or so. That's been nice. I've been all about that. I actually worked, did a little job as a little actor because I'm in Los Angeles. And we were outside all day, but it was overcast all day. And this particular television show, I won't say what it is, but maybe this is a clue to what it is. They have to be they're in Philadelphia. It's based in Philadelphia. So pretty much the call was like, remember, wear colors. That's an autumn day in Philadelphia or whatever. So I show up and it was overcast all day. And I was like, hey, this is accurate.
Philly weather.
Philly weather. Yeah.
Well, and you were able to go method because you had that experience with your fellow Philly Union fans.
True. Well, not my Philly Union fans, but I'm from Bucks County, and I talked to other people from Bucks County that were there, and we're like, yeah, we're actually from Philly. So we definitely felt that.
Okay.
Although, if I overheard correctly, I think this particular episode took place in West Virginia. Have you ever been to West Virginia, Bjorn?
I have, actually. I've gone hiking in West Virginia.
Nice.
It's different.
Different how? Different than hiking where? Just what do you
mean?
No,
the hiking is the hiking. It's very beautiful. Yeah, it's sort of hard to describe, but like I was driving from here to West Virginia for this hiking trip. It's about 6 hour plus drive, and you definitely feel like you are going somewhere different. Like West Virginia is different. Even from Virginia. Tell me.
Yeah, I used to drive through West Virginia all the time because I'd go from Pittsburgh to North Carolina. And I would drive the US State 19. And essentially, there's like two smaller cities on either end of the state. And that's really it. The rest of the state is just like state routes and country, kind of. So I remember I got my first speeding ticket there. They're bored. They probably love ticketing all the guys driving through with out-of-state license plates. But I imagine it's a great place to like. You can probably go skiing there, maybe somewhere or something. There's probably stuff to do there.
Oh, skiing in West Virginia? Yeah, maybe.
Well, definitely camping and hiking and stuff like that.
Yeah. The hiking, yeah, it was beautiful, very beautiful.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, we had the Bundesliga this past weekend, and you particularly. The Bundesliga, and I didn't know what to. I named this episode "Business as Usual" because it's like Bayern München is up top. They destroyed Stuttgart. Harry Kane got his hat trick, and apparently, according to Derek Ray, it is a German hat trick because in Germany it's not a hat trick; it's called Dreierpack.
Unless you score them in with pack, unless they're uninterrupted in the same half.
Right, which I learned. I learned that over the weekend.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I did know that. I mean, you know, I think it's a little bit like, I don't know, whatever. Like you could call it a hat trick if it's
so in German,
there's been some. I think Derek Ray has decided this actually that it's Dreierpack versus hat trick. I have heard this called a hat trick versus a pure hat trick. In my day, it was like a pure hat trick was 3 interrupted in one half. But like, I mean, who cares? This is
hold on. Well, okay. So when Christian Pulisic scored a hat trick for Chelsea back in the day, he scored one with his head, one with his left leg, and one with his right leg, I believe. And that was called the. I thought that was called the pure hat trick.
Oh,
because that makes it pure hat trick, or maybe I'm thinking of a different word. Maybe it's complete hat trick or the perfect hat trick or something. But because he scored 3 goals with 3 different parts of his body, that's a type of hat trick. And I want to say it was like pure or perfect or something. I'm pretty sure he scored against Burnley, if memory serves. But yeah, it's funny with all these labels. I mean, who enforces it? Who enforces?
I mean, the Dreierpack certainly is not an official. I mean, when I was a young person in Germany, that was not an official term, but I guess maybe it is now because of Derek Ray. And
it's also not. It's
I mean, here they call in the 2-goal thing. That's a brace. I don't know what is a
right.
It's a brace. Anyway, I don't know. So who cares?
I'm curious that we should look into that one day. We should Google the roots of these terms because what's that TV show? Ted Lasso looked up what bottled it means or something, and they have this whole story of like people could bring bottles, I think, to the stadium back in the day, and then if you mess it up, they'd throw your bottles at you or something. That's where the term "bottled it" comes from, or something. There's all these stories to this stuff. Most of it probably comes from England, those old English. I love going on YouTube or my algorithm keeps spitting me out these videos. I just saw a video, an old grainy footage from the 80s or maybe the 90s or probably the 80s of a non-league football fan who keeps getting kicked out of stadiums because he's quote unquote the loudest fan in England.
Oh,
and he's this big dude who yells loud.
Bad? That's bad.
Well, that's good for his team. It's bad for the other teams. Like he just keeps getting kicked out of stadiums. He's like a local
he
character.
Goes on the road. Okay.
Yeah, he goes on the road. He's also a big dude. He was like 7 foot tall. And it was just funny with all these characters and stuff. And there's one where like the lights went out of the stadium, but one of the fans was the city's electrician, so he just went out with like the stadium officials and then fixed it so they could go back and watch the rest of the game. Fans of a fan. I think there was one too where a fan had to. The linesman got injured, so a fan had to be the linesman for the last 30 minutes and did his best. That's the lower league football. But you gotta love it. You gotta love it.
Right, that is fun. I mean, I feel like these kinds of the kind of naming things, etc. It also goes through waves and fashions, and like commentators always treat it as if this is like science or it's like technical language, but it's like people, for a while. I think this has kind of gone out of sight a little bit. For a while, it's like teams were asking questions. Like it seems like that's not said anymore. Mean? It's like, Arsenal continues to ask questions of the Chelsea defense, or
right,
like attacking would be asking questions. For a while, that like everybody would say that. I'm like, huh. What is the question?
What are the question is why can't I get past you?
Yeah, like right. Just I mean, this yeah. So it's things like that, or finding joy. For a while, it was like if you were successful and you were finding joy at certain parts of the field, or So anyway, this is not an exact science. People just sort of say stuff. It's fine. So,
It's
but
poetry.
anyway, Harry Kane had a well. If when it works, it is, or it's just like people saying stupid, like opening an account. If you score for your team for the
yeah.
first time,
I like
he's
that.
opening his account. You like that?
Yeah, he's
okay.
depositing more goals into his account. Yeah,
like
whatever
opening his
to be
account.
creative with.
Because
Yeah.
he's like, yeah. All right.
I do appreciate those who are creative. I do appreciate those who try to be creative. There are people who fail to be creative, like Rob Stone. Whenever he kicked a ball, hard ball, he'd be like, "Oh, there goes a cracker." He just like yell that, and his American, "Ah, rah, rah." And that just makes me be like, I'm not watching real soccer. You know what I mean? I don't know what about that. Where I was just like, but you know, if someone's like, he just opened his account for Barcelona, you know. For whatever reason, I'm like, yes, this is football commentary. This I
Yeah,
understand.
some people go all out. Oh,
Oh, he toe
anyway.
slammed it. I don't know. There's ways to be poetic in a way that feels
Toe-slammed
like soccer. There's ways to be creative where it feels like this is wrong. What we're doing
I
feels
mean,
dirty.
it's like actual poetry. Some of it you like, and some of it you don't. I mean, anyway. So, but Harry Kane had an actual hat trick, undisputable
But
real
I
hat
mentioned
trick.
Stuttgart, Tippspiel, and Stuttgart offered no answers.
Well, they kind
or
of
no,
they
yeah, or
kind
no
of
questions. What did they offer? Was it
they
no questions
sort-
or no answers?
they were asked a lot of questions that they didn't have answers to, I guess.
There you go. There you go.
I mean, they found no joy anywhere
Right.
in this game. I mean, they also kind of were. I guess they had previously lost pretty badly in Bayern, and you know, Sebastian Hoeneß is a man of principle and cojones, right? Historically, I'm thinking specifically about the Champions League game in Madrid where they went for it and ultimately didn't work out, but they've played a brave game on the road and I was impressed, and they almost came away with something. They had an Undorf goal. Anyway, this was not one of those examples.
No.
In this case, Sebastian Hoeneß decided to be very pragmatic, do a lot of to beat the Bayern press by kind of hoofing long balls, and that did not work. Alex Pavlovic was hurt, and Paulinho plays for Bayern. Did you know this? I mean, I guess I kind of knew, but it was such a Paulinho from he came from Fulham.
Oh,
and there was a
Palinha or whatever.
Paulinho, yeah.
Yeah.
Is
He was
that
brought
what-
in over the summer because
Yeah.
Tuchel wanted
Well,
him.
but there was this whole thing that Tuchel was trying to get him over the winter break, and then they kind of failed with the paperwork, or it just didn't go through, and at the last second it didn't, and that then became sort of a thing. It's like, oh yeah, well, we didn't get the guy that was supposed to shore up
Right, which was
the
ridiculous.
defense,
Which is
you know,
ridiculous.
and then they got him in the summer, but now they have Pavlovic,
Who they should be playing.
who is in that
the young
position, and
German-
he's the up and coming guy. He's been very good, but he was hurt, and Paulinho filled in, and he was great, and he did exactly that job together with Kimmich, and shut it all down. So there was no joy for Stuttgart with the long balls, because he was just cleaning everything up, and so. Harry Kane kind of missed a bunch of chances early, and you thought, oh, maybe there'll be something. But then once the floodgates opened, it was not close. So that was the big one. Leverkusen, Frankfurt was kind of the sleeper big one, I thought,
Right.
and that was a good game with Leverkusen with Frankfurt taking the early lead, and. But then Leverkusen coming back, and Boniface, who has been kind of in a little bit of trouble with the club because he got in a car accident at early morning hours when he was supposed to be recovering. Perhaps he's like picking up friends from the airport. He wasn't driving, but the person driving the car apparently passed out and sort of drove into a truck. So no, everybody. This was
This
last week.
potentially. Dana, I mean, it's like the Charlie Davies thing. I mean, it could be,
I mean, everybody was mostly fine. There was no.
but this was like a late night after clubbing type situation.
I mean, we don't know, but like the timing of it sort of suggests it. And he had a big week. He also had some drama with his national team, where a game kind of was. So anyway, Boniface was under had a lot going on, but then scored the winner. And
what was that story
all
with
is forgiven.
Nigeria? They missed a flight, so the game got canceled. What was it again?
Kind
Am I mixing that up?
of, yeah. It was kind of like that. I
didn't read the article because I just chalked it up to incompetent FAs. It happens. You hear that? What's his face stopped playing for Jamaica because he refused to buy him tickets that didn't have 3 transfers in them. Who's Jamaican star? Whatever the Jamaican, the former Bayer Leverkusen star.
It's really. I mean, it's funny, but it's also. It's easy
sad.
to, it's sad, and it's easy to overlook, what these players really deal with for these international, like it's one thing if you're playing for the German team and you just go,
right,
go down the street to play in the same stadium that you're playing week in, week out, versus flying across half the world and it's changing planes, etc. So
the Europeans have that advantage, but. Especially the Germans. Remember when Germany came to the United States? That was a whole thing because it's like in the middle of the season, we would never fly that far with the national team. It's like this is what everybody does.
Everybody does it who doesn't live in Europe. Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't live in
we
Europe.
were talking. I was talking about Chris Wood. Chris Wood. I was just watching Premier League today, and he plays for Nottingham Forest. He's from New Zealand. His international break is insane. Anyway,
I have something to share later related to that. Reminded me, and it is very much something where I shared it on our Twitter, but it's very much a duh for us. It's like a Schnitzel Boys comment, but it is the quotes, and this hits close to home to me specifically because I live in Los Angeles. But Marco Reus was asked about, because Marco Reus is like the Steven Gerrard of Germany. Because Steven Gerrard never left Liverpool and he went to LA for 6 months. It's the only time he's lived anywhere outside of Liverpool. He just knows Liverpool. And Marco Reus is sort of that. Marco Reus is a guy.
He was talking about. Yeah, I saw that.
He finally left. He's now in LA. He's finally living somewhere else. He's finally outside Germany. And he's just like, whoa, everyone's really positive around it. It's just like, because all he knows is the German negativity and stuff, especially where he was up in Dortmund. And it's just like, wow, the weather here is great. People here are more positive. It's like, I want to share his exact quote.
I mean, there were some. Yeah, no, if you can find it, that'd be good. Anyway, while you're
Voice in LA. Here you get more of a sense that people are interested in the positive things. They see you and you're wearing a cool shirt and they say, hey, cool shirt. Of course, it's a bit of that superficial American vibe, you could say. But they're more likely to strike up a conversation with you. I love my country. I love Germany. I wouldn't have lived there for so long otherwise. I'm really grateful that the country offers us so many opportunities. But you start to feel more and more like everything there is so negative. Like everyone is just living their own life, bottling it all up, getting sucked into a kind of whirlpool, and they forget the positivity of life itself. And I just find that sad. And I think that's the biggest difference here. That's Marco Reus on Dortmund versus LA. And I was like,
it's sort of
every German has that sentiment that lives here.
A little bit, right? We can relate. I mean, Toni Kroos kind of said something similar in terms of Spain versus Germany a little bit.
I think it's related. I'm studying weather patterns and stuff right now. We talked about this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I look at the map of the United States, and everything's just explained by total physical location and geography, right? And I think that's how also you can explain culture in a lot of ways. And Germany is just this place, and whenever I go, I love it, but like they just put so much pressure on themselves. And it's not on themselves. Maybe that's wrong. It's the fact that they're just not landlocked, but they're just in the middle of everything, and they're like surrounded by everyone, and they're looked at from all angles and stuff. And you can definitely feel that tension. It's like palpable. Whereas a place like the UK is the exact opposite. They're off in the ocean. They don't give a crap about anyone. They're very chill, and like they don't care about anybody other than themselves because they are literally isolated out there in the ocean. It's just funny how and Spain is close to the equator, has two coasts, north and south. They got the Portuguese to the west, but really, other than the Pyrenees, where they have France on the other side, they don't really have anybody. They're also kind of semi-isolated, so they're allowed to be a little more relaxed.
There's Portugal, but yeah,
I said Portugal.
And I mean, also wherever you are, the south is always more conservative, right? Like, is that because because it's warmer? Like, yeah,
exactly.
No, interesting. Yeah, Marco Reus having a good time in LA. Good.
I look forward to going to a playoff game.
It's just interesting. I think it's really a good experience. I mean, I definitely feel a version of this too. It's just a good experience to really experience a different culture. A lot of people just don't, especially in this ginormous country. It's very easy to just kind of stay in your own lane, but it just makes you see things through a different lens.
Yeah, so that's.
But if you cannot travel yourself, you can always listen to us. It'll be
while you're traveling, listen to us as well.
That's
true. We'll offer you the perspective. We've been around. We're rambling men. Also, Germans like us
in more ways than one.
In more ways than one. We're rambling. This is the real football rambles. But we German men travel. Germans like to travel. You know, Werner Herzog likes to take a camera and go to Peru.
They're everywhere.
But Germans travel.
Anyway,
anywho. I've titled this episode "Business as Usual," which is wrong because there's one specific case we'll talk about in a second.
Not in Bochum,
but
no.
Every result this weekend was expected. There were no surprises,
more or less.
And there were no ties either. There were no ties. So this weekend, this weekend there were no ties. It was all wins and losses, and all the favorites won. Dortmund beat St. Pauli. Hoffenheim beat Bochum.
Yeah, I mean that took a while. St. Pauli, that was tied for a long time, that game. So there were some, but in the end, they did win.
So Pellegrino Matarazzo is on the hot seat at Hoffenheim. He's been under pressure since the summer, and that weirdness with him and Kramaric and the U.S. coaching position. Seems like not everybody on that club is on his side. And Hoffenheim started the season very hot and cold, mainly cold. So they did play Bochum. They did get the win, but like you said, beating Bochum almost doesn't count. And Bochum made
it also
change in office this weekend. You tell me.
I mean,
I'm trying to give you a platform.
Yeah, this is exactly. This is what happened. I mean, this was the game. Bochum has 1 point out of 6 games prior to this, and this was the game. You don't say like, oh, you're going to go to Hoffenheim and you're going to get something out of there necessarily, but the schedule is brutal. After this, it's going to be Bayern, Frankfurt, Leverkusen, and Stuttgart in a row for Bochum. So this was kind of a game where it was like, this is until December kind of the last time you could perhaps get something. And, and Pellegrino Matarazzo's situation, I don't think has improved that much because... I mean, there was from a Hoffenheim perspective, we could just start with that briefly. Since we are Pellegrino fans, right? It has to be said. We wish him well as an American, coach with the most melodious name imaginable, Pellegrino Matarazzo. Anyway, Matarazzo. Anyway,
he's an American-born man who turned himself into a German man. He's a Germanified man. So we root for that because that's the Schnitzel.
We do. He is the spirit animal of the Schnitzel Boys in some ways.
Totally.
One of them.
Yeah, he's a member of our.
We have many. We have a bunch of. We have the Schnitzel Boys Hall of Fame is vast. But anyway, all this to say, big game for them, and Hoffenheim crushed Bochum. Brutally in the first half. Kramaric should have had a hat trick, but he only got one. But
we call that an Einerpack.
An Einerpack. He had an Einerpack, a one trick. He was a one trick pony in this. But he hit the post. There were saves there. This was, but this wasn't even necessarily a sign. Yeah, like I said, a sign of Hoffenheim figuring it out. Bochum have just been awful, and that's. But it got ugly for Hoffenheim because, again, the second half, Bochum made many changes at halftime, then came back, played somewhat better, had a couple chances, but Hoffenheim again scored, had a goal called back for offside, for passive offside. Then finally they scored the second one. Then Christian Gamboa, old man Gamboa of Costa Rican fame, comes off the bench. He hasn't played for Bochum in a long time. Scores a goal, gets a like really out of nothing, gets across to the box, and he puts it into the long corner. Then Hoffenheim defender kind of gets the ball played from his goalie and loses it, fouls at the edge of the box, gives him a penalty kick to Bochum. 2-1 with a 2-1 lead. Lukas Daschner takes the worst penalty kick in the history of soccer. Like really weakly just rolls it to the left. Oliver Baumann, I think also Kramaric actually, he probably has he knew something because he pointed towards the corner where Daschner was going to shoot at, and he didn't even hit the corner. He just sort of weakly rolled it to one side, and Baumann just kind of fell over and saved it. And then in stoppage time, Hoffenheim gets another one, wins it 3-1. So it seems, and then afterwards, in the press conference, Peter Zeidler, Bochum coach, talked about how there was a lot of improvement and this was something to build on, and everybody was just like, "What game did you watch? There was nothing. This was a terrible performance against a team that clearly is also struggling, and tried to piss it away, but we wouldn't let them." And Peter, then he was asked if he feels secure in his job, and he said he's hardworking and very competent, and that's why he's the coach of Bochum, and he expects to be the coach for a long time. Now, this, of course, as these things go, then didn't last long, because then a day later, Bochum fired everybody. And by everybody, I mean Peter Zeidler, the coach, Mark Lettau, the sporting director, plus the team manager and the main scout also all got canned. Apparently,
these players suck. You scouted all these guys.
There was a crisis meeting, and the people in charge decided that everything was bad and everybody had to get fired. Now,
this is what, the fourth time this has happened in the last 3 years?
This
something like this? Maybe not to this extent, though, right? Not this extent.
I mean, just give me your reaction to this and tell me what you think, because I have a lot to say about it.
You mean of the firing, of the whole clearing of the whole staff?
Well,
or whatever?
the whole everything about it.
Well, my opinion. That's what I want to ask you. You know how sometimes the offense has questions for the defense. My questions to you running this theme is like, is that the fix?
Is that
they hire and fire coaches every 6 months?
Ugh.
They hire and fire sport directors every season, and it's like, if you guys spend $0 on players, it's the Bundesliga. It's not the Bundesliga 2. It's not the Bundesliga 3. It's the Bundesliga 1. So you got Bayern München coming next week. You got So what? How? I don't know. I'm just like, what is their business plan? Like, what is their game plan? What are they trying? Did they think this Peter Zeidler, who had what was his experience, right? He was from the lower leagues or something. I don't know.
He was from Switzerland. But he
didn't have any Bundesliga coaching experience, right?
And he knew Mark Lettau. He knew Mark Lettau, sporting director.
What do they expect if they don't bring anyone with any sort of provable?
It's terrible.
Acumen. This is
they also didn't. I mean, this is just an admission, right, of total and utter neglect, right, from the from the people.
Like, we hired everybody wrong.
Yeah, we totally this is all wrong, and everybody needs to go. Now, is this the fix? No. Bochum's gonna get relegated this year. That's what's gonna happen. I mean, we
Looking
thought
like it, right? It's looking.
we thought. I mean, barring any kind of miracle, because this will not fix it. This is a mismatched roster. Like that's low quality. They didn't. It didn't. I mean, it's everybody's fault. Apparently, there's some great insiders in Bochum that if you speak the German language and you are on the Twitter, you can get a lot of behind the scenes actually if you spend a little time. And so, what I heard there is that everybody agreed that the sporting director had to go. So that was the quick decision, and then I guess there was some question whether Zeitler should stay or go. Some of this is also financial because, yeah, as you're pointing out, they're still paying for Thomas Lech, who they let go with like 4 games or 5 games to go at the end of last season. Who was such a great. I mean, he really did so well, and then they let him go only to replace him with the youth coach, who also couldn't do any better, and then really only stayed up by this completely fluky second relegation playoff game. But this and then, you know, Patrick Fabian, the one of the, I don't know what his title was, but it was him and Letta were kind of the co-sporting directors. And he left, and then they didn't replace him. They just said, oh, Letta was in charge of everything. And he brought in his old pal, Peter Zeitler, and then they didn't replace the players that left adequately, or even with players that fit this guy's system. There was this particular, and this is like the story of that kind of a team, right? In general, nobody goes in for a job in Bochum with the right attitude, unless it's Peter Neururer, or you hire somebody who's really just there to be like,
Well, let me challenge that for a second.
Okay.
You're right. Because remember, the other thing is at the end of last season, Manuel Riemann sat out, right? Remember, he sat out.
Well, only for the relegation playoffs, he was suspended basically.
But would that be a clue to the fact that it's like a toxic environment there? And maybe
I think
it's not the right mentality needed, because a place like Bochum's a small club. You can't buy players, but you can instill a mentality that's free.
I think they did that pretty well the first 3 years, more or less. I mean, I think last year. I thought last year that the roster was really under right.
I remember, but they made it.
Under
they just made it,
and they just just made it. But they eventually found this pragmatic thing, you know, like at the beginning. And this is the thing. That's what I'm saying about Lech. Now everybody's like, yeah, Lech was so great, and he was great, but he also started like with higher ambitions, like a lot of people do. He came in mid-season and he saved them from relegation, and then he was like, oh, this year we're gonna do things differently. We're gonna have more of the ball. We're gonna be more proactive. Blah 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 blah. And you know, like, yeah, that's not gonna last. But then, with a team like that is at a talent deficit in almost every game, you just got to be pragmatic. You're going to fight hard, and you're going to kind of steal the goals wherever you can. You got to be just very, very pragmatic, unfortunately. Fortunately or unfortunately, that's just how these things go. And this particular version of Peter Zeitler's was like, I was reminded of Saudi Arabia at the World Cup a couple of you know, where it's like, just a team that's like, there's just a naivete about this particular group where they're like, they're a bad team acting like they're a good team, trying to play like they're a good team. And that just doesn't work. And so
you gotta park the bus, you gotta hold tight, you gotta count.
It wasn't it wasn't working. But now they fired everybody, and the replacements are going to be I think they're just 2 of the assistants, who I guess also had some, according to Bochum Twitter, had some disagreements with Zeitler, and so but they're now in charge for the interim and see how that goes. And they're going to look for a new Sportdirektor before they can even hire a new head coach. And then you know, it was Fischer's name is floating around.
I was going to say. Do whatever it takes to get your hands on Urs Fischer.
But why
That's your
would
next
he?
step.
Why would he want this job? This is like a
The Bundesliga
this is
job.
this
It's
is
a
a
rebuild
death wish. It's a death wish of a.
If you're a head coach, you have an ego. And there's nothing more ego than I'm going to take over a hopeless club and turn around their fortunes.
Yeah, if it
You know
works,
what I mean?
or if it doesn't, then you find yourself in Bundesliga 2.
That's true.
And that's
But
what's
that's
going
the
to.
risk, isn't it? I have an idea
All
of
right.
who the next
Yeah,
sport
I
director
know.
could be.
You've told me. Let's hear it.
I have not. This is a new one. This is a new, well,
Oh,
there's two
okay.
ideas. You were asking for a miracle, and I do have the suggestion of
Oh,
two.
who is it?
Miracle 1, Bruce Arena. Miracle. Coming in with his big New York voice. Yeah, Bochum's
I
had
mean,
a tough
that's like
season.
the
We'll
same.
turn it
You said-
around.
You said
We'll
Bob
turn it
Bradley
around.
before
Well,
Bruce
I was gonna
Arena.
say-
Bob Bradley. That's the same thing. They're the same person.
No, they're not. They're right different. And then my second miracle is Bobby B. You need a nice, stern-faced, bald man to fit the pattern. There's only one. He's available.
only-
He's up in Norway. Bobby B. Bob Bradley. But no,
The
actually,
only
I want
two-
Bruce
the-
Arena to be there because I want him to be like, yeah, we got to play Bayern Munich next week. He would do great.
Two-
but no,
two
no,
of the
in all
very
seriousness-
two of the very few coaches for whom Bochum would actually be a step up.
Well, I will say this. You should apply for that sport director job. You should email them. You should put in your resume and be like, hi, I'm Bjorn. I have no
I used to
football.
live
I
around
have
the
no
corner
higher
from
level.
here.
I used to live around the corner from
used to
here.
live down the
How else are
street.
they hiring people? How else are they hiring people?
Who else you
That's
gonna
what the
get?
Pauli office was. It was just the fans that became office men.
I don't think I could do much worse. I think.
I'm telling you. What I will
I
say,
think that's fair.
another part of the VfL Bochum equation is, yeah, they're poor. Yeah, they spend no money on players. However, you're allowed to be creative. You sign an old player that has a bum knee, and you maybe try to squeeze another year out of them. You loan a kid from one of the bigger clubs, that's B. Or C, you sign a player from a development league, from the Korean League, the Japanese League, MLS, or even the Canadian Premier League. Hell, you get creative. Like there are ways to bring players in to make you as strong as possible to compete in the Bundesliga. And this summer, all their best players, all their strongest players, they just let them all go, and they brought in no replacements. And it's like, I understand you can't buy players.
They brought in some
I believe you
replacements,
can,
but they're
like-
not. But they are not as
But
it's
there,
not
but there
the
are,
same.
as far as I know, there are no loanees from the big clubs. There should always be a handful of those. And there's no name
We've
players
got
that have
we've got a
experience.
striker. We got a striker from Marseille, but that's it.
Yeah, I guess that is an example of that, but I think they can do more. Like, there's no reason that they got a guy from Man City's reserves on their bench. You know what I mean? Or just playing with them.
It's just if you're at such a financial disadvantage, you just gotta be. You just need better leadership. I mean, this is just incredible. I mean, first of all, like just the timing of it. So if Daschner makes this penalty kick, then and we get a point in Hoffenheim, then
And Pellegrino's the one.
Then
Pellegrino's the one
Pellegrino,
who
yeah,
gets
then
fired.
probably Pellegrino. So this is, I mean, I guess this is one
It's
point
football.
that I
It's
would
how it
make.
works.
It's just, but it's just so stupid though. It's like, especially when you're a team like this and you need, and you're at this financial disadvantage, you just need better leadership. You need continuity. You need to have some kind of, you have to have a coach that you're happy with in Bundesliga 1 or Bundesliga 2, and that is like a long-term kind of a person. And this sort of mismatched nonsense, and then like 7 games later, you're like, oh yeah, this was bad. We're gonna fire everybody.
Right. It's bad management. It's mismanagement.
that's
Eventually,
just
if that
terrible.
happens again, it's the board, right? You have to vote the board out eventually.
Well, they have
That's right.
the annual meetings coming up. I don't know how this will. They have not, I've tried to become a member before and they wouldn't let me,
Right.
so I'm not part of this. But
That could also be why they did this, because if their meeting's coming up, it's very, they have to tell their fans.
But
that it's
that's
something.
what's so stupid. That's what is so upsetting. This like kind of, well, we did the thing that you do in this situation, and it's just not good enough. Like you just got to have a little bit more.
You have to have a long-term vision. Yeah.
A little
So
bit
for
more of a
long-term
long-term
plan,
vision, a little bit more of a that's more in tune with your identity, you know, and then and stick with the people that match that. Like Thomas Lech, you know, like I said, he started ambitiously, but eventually he figured out some kind of pragmatism. And he had sort of the right attitude. He fit well with the team, with the players, and with just the whole identity of the club. And just to be like, with like 3 games to go or however it was, to be like, oh yeah, no, we just got to fire the guy, and then replace him with. Yeah, I just don't like it. And then now find yourself a few months later with like, oh yeah, all these people we put in charge, they're all terrible. We're gonna let them all go. So
what you need to do, I'll offer the fixing plan. So you bring in Urs Fischer. If you can't get Urs Fischer, you bring in me or you or someone, whoever. And essentially, you're like, let's not kid ourselves. Our plan is 10 men behind the ball. We're defending. We're turning ourselves into a tough nut to crack, and we hit you fast on the counter as fast as possible, and which is how it always is. If your club has a fraction of the payroll, that's what you do. You stay tight. You don't have the ball. You defend well, and you just hit them back on the counter.
You try to become good at set pieces, and I mean they have
good at set pieces.
We have
Boshinski. That's part one.
We have Boshinski and Hoffman. Anyway, sorry. Part 2. What's part 2?
No. What's Boshinski and Hoffman?
No, I was just going to speak more to how mismatched this. You know, the team was trying to be a possession team playing through the middle, and they played a system where only the 4-4-2 with kind of the diamond, or the shape where only the fullbacks go forward. When you have like Philipp Hoffmann and Boshinski, who are like 2 target formats, they should just be banging crosses into the box. And anyway,
right.
Yeah.
No, exactly. Keep it simple. Okay, it says, you also follow up. You get your hands on Gio Reyna this time. It failed in the summertime. The wintertime, you get another loan or two. You add a little bit of a reinforcement. I would probably suggest defensive reinforcement, maybe offensive. Someone who can take a penalty. I mean, Gio Reyna wouldn't have rolled a slow penalty to the side. He would have just slammed it in, I think. You know, but Gio Reyna is a perfect example of who you guys should be getting your hands on. Raw talent, real talent that for whatever reason needs to be rewoken up, or needs to be given minutes, needs to be given an opportunity. There's a lot of those guys out there. And those are the kinds of players that you can grab, and then you should be grabbing. And that's the kind of stuff the sport director should have a long list of. You should have a list of like hundreds of those names, you know. So, you know, when you're a sport director, that's what you do. You just make sure you have every position, 100 names of damaged players that you think couldn't do well. Have you ever see that scene in Moneyball when they're in the boardroom and they're just trying to sign, like they're not trying to sign a replacement. They're just trying to replace the numbers or whatever, you know? Have you ever seen that?
I've seen that movie, but I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember this particular scene.
It's a great scene where it's the recruiters and Oakland A's at the time. Oh, it's crazy I'm bringing up the Oakland A's. You know, we're the poorest league, and they had like a 1/20th of the budget of the Yankees or whatever. And they're sitting there recruiting players, and they're doing that. They're just like, pretty much they're recruiting damaged players. It's just like, you know, and then the reason that became a thing is because Billy Beane invented this he brought in the stats guy and invented a new way to rescout players. I don't know how applicable that is to Bochum, but the idea is you have to be creative and you have to bring in damaged players and try to bring the little potential they have left out of them. And VfL Bochum failed at that miserably. They need to do better at that. I would say if I had to identify problem one, I think that's that. So I don't know. It can only go up. So whoever they bring in, you can do no work,
in the standings.
Right?
Yeah, in the standings, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. How are you feeling about VfL Bochum's future?
Oh, I already said I think there's not gonna be any quick fixes. The schedule is brutal. We're probably gonna. I mean, anything other than losing the next 4 games would be a surprise. And
what is the over/under of them getting points the next 4 games? How many points do you think they're going to get? Do you think it'll be 0? I think it'll be 3. I think they'll randomly beat.
They're going to get 3 points out of the next 4 games.
Well, you said the next 4 games are Bayern, Frankfurt, Leverkusen, and Stuttgart, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think they'll win one of those randomly.
Yeah, I
I think it'll be Bayern München.
I'll take the under.
I like to predict something crazy.
All right.
It's likely 0 points. But anywho, the VfL Bochum side continues, and it seems like this is finally the season where they do finally make their way back in the Zweiten Bundesliga, where it seems that's where they feel they belong anyway. If you're looking at the point of view of the board, the executive board. But we had a couple of things we want to bring up today. Didn't you? You want to surprise me with something on the pod. I want to bring something up to you, but you surprise me.
Yeah, please go ahead. No, go for it.
Oh, Thomas Tuchel
I had some FIFA shenanigans, but let's talk about Tuchel. Yeah, Tuchel to England.
Yeah, what do you think? What do you think? Thomas Tuchel, England coach.
Well, he said he's really English. He just has a German passport, kind of. So I guess he's switched.
I saw his
he's English now.
Press conference. It was a lot of fun. I thought he answered the questions right. It's funny. I as outsiders, I don't see this as clearly as he does. But pretty much he feels that in Germany he is like not respected at all. But in England he's quite respected. And it definitely showed with the reporters. They're just like, you led Chelsea to beat Manchester City in the Champions League. How is that going to help you with this? And what I loved, I think someone asked, like, how do you feel about an 18-month contract? Thomas Tuchel's like, I tend to be an 18-month type of guy. Because, like, all of his gigs, which historically, true, like at Dortmund, all of his gigs have been under 18 months or whatever, 18 months and under.
Yeah, he's a little bit. He seems like he's a little bit of a prickly dude, and so
right,
this is kind of his. That's kind of the timeline. Yeah,
but it's definitely all smiles. He was on.
Not everybody. Cafe. There were some. No? There were some.
No, I meant from Tuchel.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
However, you're right. The crusty English media had a real problem with a German head coach.
I know.
And I'm like, well, then make an English head coach. If you forced me to hire a decent English head coach, I wouldn't know where to go or who to hire. There are none. Yeah, Eddie Howe is the only guy they can come up with, and Eddie Howe is a middling coach at best.
I mean, Graham Potter is available.
You guys, it's like England. If you want an English coach, you need to make English coaches exist. I mean, they just don't exist, man. I don't know what that is. I know I, for one, am really excited about this. I think they would do really well with an American coach. No joke. I think Bruce Arena.
Bob Bradley or Bruce Arena, perhaps.
because you know what the English lack?
Oh, my God.
They lack the American mentality of winning. They have, like, the skill. They're much more skilled.
Excuse me, what? The American mentality of winning in soccer?
No,
soccer?
Sports in general. Just sports. I'm talking Rocky. I'm talking everything. Soccer, no, but I'm not talking soccer. I'm talking football here.
Sorry, I'm laughing.
English players, A, don't travel well. B, are very arrogant. And C, they're very talented, but they have no heart. It's like 11 mercenaries running around. And under the Wayne Rooney, Frank Lampard,
they need Bob Bradley. Days, they need Bob Bradley to straighten.
They need Bobby B to settle that stuff. No, they need to unify.
Like
they need to punch above their weight a little bit.
Like he did in Swansea.
Hey, Swansea's Wales, not England. Okay, that's the Welsh mentality. It's finally time for Bob to go to England.
Oh, my God.
Literally, you know who it could be, for real? It could be someone like Bill Belichick or Phil Jackson.
Like a
basketball coach.
Oh, it doesn't have to be a soccer person.
No, if I were the English FA, I would hire Phil Jackson.
Phil Jackson, is he still alive?
I don't think so, actually. I don't know. He's definitely retired. but you understand what I'm saying? They need a coach with the American sports.
I can't say that I do.
Well, you described why do you think English has won nothing ever in a sport they invented, in a sport they're very cocky about?
Well,
why do you think that's the
case?
It's
the players. They're just not that good.
The players were good enough. It's the mentality. You think the players was never good enough to win anything at all? They had good players.
Apparently,
David Beckham was David Beckham and Frank Lampard and Steve McManaman and and Alan Shearer. These guys are all schlubs. You're saying?
I mean, they were not like the. None of those guys were like. Well, maybe Beckham in his prime.
The 1990 World Cup.
None of those guys were the top 10 best players in the world.
Well, top 10, I think. Yeah, top 10. Alan Shearer was never a top 10 striker.
Frank Lampard? I don't think so.
but you look at a team that wins the World Cups in Germany. You look at Jürgen Klinsmann and all that stuff. The 1990 team, they were good, but were they literally a league better?
Oh my God!
English
Yeah,
players?
the 1990 team was incredible.
Jürgen Klinsmann himself will say we weren't the best team, but we had the best spirit. We wanted to be a spirit. I just don't buy the fact that the English players aren't good enough to win anything. I mean, if Greece can win the Euros, then why haven't England? And Greece just beat them, by the way, a week ago. They beat them. It was like they beat them. I forgot what the score was, but they beat them. And there was a guy in the stands. He had a sign and says, "We have a Euro Cup and you don't." I love it. But I'm like, why can't England beat Greece? I love this Thomas Tuchel appointment because Thomas Tuchel is like, he's German, comes from freaking 8 titles. What is it? 4 World Cups, 7 titles.
You don't rate him historically.
No, but I rate the German mentality.
Okay.
And Thomas Tuchel would bring that in.
I thought it was. I mean, I think he's going to do great. I think 18 months is a good time frame for him. I thought it was funny. The whole it has to be an English coach. There was one journalist who published an article about how it should be an English coach 3 days after promoting Pep Guardiola for the job. So that was the funny thing. Like if they had gotten Pep Guardiola or Klopp, this would have not come up. But because it's Tuchel, people are like, oh, we should find somebody from England.
That's also the specialty of the English media. They are by far the worst, most aggressive.
Media and I think that's probably also weighed on the team in the past a lot of the time. So yeah, I mean, if they really won the World Cup with Tuchel as coach, that'd be a little weird. That'd be a little weird.
City.
I don't know. That would maybe irk me a little bit. I don't know.
Why would it irk you? I'd be all about it. A German coach winning the World Cup with England, I think it'd be hilarious.
I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, I thought it was a little. Yeah, I mean, there was he put out this little video on Twitter where he said how honored he was to take the. Yeah, I thought it was a little bit weird. I didn't think up to that point that it was weird, but then I was like, yeah, that is kind of weird to have a German. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. I don't know.
But how about this? There are 2 main candidates, and apparently they interviewed 10 coaches. I was like, who are the other 8? But pretty much it was between Poch and Tuchel, right? From the English point of view, it was like, do we go English or do we go big, foreign big? And foreign big to them meant 2 things. It meant Poch and it meant Tuchel, pretty much. Because Klopp was, I guess maybe Klopp was more gettable than we realized with the Red Bull stuff. But anyway, it seemed like it was Poch or Tuchel. And I thought the United States would have to wait for them to make their decision first. But we got Poch first. We took him off their table. Mm-hmm. So they were left with Tuchel. Tuchel was the leftover guy.
And you would have, I mean, you would have preferred Poch, right, over Tuchel for the U.S.?
You mean for the yeah? I'm very happy with how that happened. But I think after Lee Carsley, they had to give Lee Carsley a little bit after he wasn't working out. They're like, we gotta get someone else. And it was Tuchel. He was the guy who was left. Not to disrespect Tuchel, I think he was a top target. But if Poch was available, I wouldn't be surprised if Poch was the one they hired over Tuchel. I don't know. Maybe I'm curious for your thoughts on that. However, wouldn't that have been what would have been weirder for the English, an Argentinian head coach or a German head coach? I think an Argentinian might have been.
I think that's probably equal. I mean,
equal. They've had. I guess we've also had physical wars with them.
They're both old rivals, the Germans and the Argentinians. I guess you gotta. I don't know. I gotta ask the English who they hate more, but I think it's probably close.
Yeah, they bring up Germany more, but the Argentina knocked them out with a handball, and their physical war was much more recent. It was like in the 60s or the 70s or whatever.
Oh, you mean the Falkland? Yeah, I mean, I think that's yeah.
There was real tension when they played in the 70s and the 80s and stuff. Mm-hmm. But anywho, so I like how their 2 choices were like from either of their enemies. They also probably could have never been a Scottish coach. I just love how England has so many enemies. Tuchel in England, I think it'll go well. I think they'll do well. I don't know why the old crusties want English coach. I didn't hear that when Sven was brought in, and they bent over backwards to bring in Fabio Capello. So I don't know where this is coming from. But anywho, what do you got for me? Last topic of the hour.
We should save that for the US hour because we're already like 54 minutes in. So I'll save. Sure. I have FIFA shenanigans on the other side.
Oh, okay. I thought okay, so it can go either way. Okay. Tschüss. Everybody, it was the Germany Hour. I'm trying to be loud and clear. I'm trying to be better with my
You sound great.
radio voice. I hope it came through okay. Bundesliga. We got
come
stuff
to
going on.
come to the MLS side. We've got FIFA shenanigans. We had decision day. Decision day. Although
The record.
most things were already decided.
True, but a record was broken, and yet another record.
Yeah. Oh, everybody's so passionate about this record. You have to. We'll tell you what it is.
I'll tell you though. Yeah, we'll talk about it next time. Anyway, see y'all. Tschüss. Bis nächste Woche.
Tschüss.
Bucket hat.